Welcome to another edition of Great Health, Abundant Happiness, and Outrageous Love.
We're doing.
Oh, go ahead.
This is exactly what it's all about. So we're doing a Twin Flames series, and that was not intentional. But very often, one of the commonalities in Twin Flames is that they finish each other's sentences, or they telepathically know what the other one is going to say, or they'll say things at the same time, which is what we just did.
Yeah.
So this is the Twin Flames series. This is number 2.
Number 2. Yeah, recap yesterday. We were just talking about, what is a twin flame? I understand it's pretty far out there, and we're doing quite a bit of research on it. We heard about it, I don't know, a year ago or something when you saw we were writing the book. And it's interesting. There are a lot of people that kind of dial it in a certain area. Some people believe that, soulmates are as far as you go. A twin flame is like, I'm going to say the next level. It's a different level.
I think it's important to say it's different.
Yeah,
right?
it is different.
Mm-hmm.
But, some people would argue that when some people say they're twin flames, they're just really powerful soulmates, which, we're all learning. I don't think anyone really truly knows. There's just a lot of study and, conversation on it. And it's interesting, but
it's really interesting. And, in the 29 years Jeffrey and I have been married, there have been numerous conversations that we've had where, we definitely know we're soulmates. And before we knew what twin flames were, which I think Jeffrey mentioned, we learned about them a year or so ago, we had talked about the things that bound us together that we felt were really different than a lot of other couples. And now in learning what twin flames are, every single one of those characteristics it is a commonality. So we've learned about that.
Yeah.
Now with that said, I think it's so important to know that very few twin flames come together at the same time. It's that soul splitting, and very few choose to come down to the next life at the same time. So, this isn't about seeking out your twin flame because he or she may not be here. So your soulmate is, I think first and foremost, but this twin flame is just a super cool
it's interesting
phenomenon. Right?
That was the first video. What's a twin flame? How do you find your twin flame?
Yeah.
And then how do you know? So that was the first video. Go back and look at that if you want to dig a little deeper.
Right.
But today we want to talk about how we came together, the story.
Exactly. So
people were asking how we connected.
Right.
And wanted details.
Right. And how how are you and your twin flame drawn together? Because this is specific to twin flames. It just so happens that our story of how we met really details the coming together of twin flames.
Well, it's classic when you look at the study of twin flames and how it all works. Mm-hmm. It's pretty classic. So we've been talking about this on a few videos. We did a show with Dan Radio Style. Karen and I did an interview with Enjoy, and a lot of things around the relationship. And people always want to know how we connected. What the story was. So we're going to do an in-depth story today because it does play into this twin flame thing specifically, and you're going to tie into some of that. How we first, you lay eyes on each other's your period of time. When you're not ready, you come back together. I mean, it all happened that way.
Exactly, and this is a classic story of twin flames coming together. So, the universe really draws you together magnetically. You're essentially looking or pulled toward the other half of your soul.
Well, it's actually you are magnified. You're pulling each other together like two magnets.
Exactly.
Because it's two separate parts of a soul coming together, right?
Right, exactly. And so initially when Jeffrey and I first met, it was a Christmas shopping at a mall in Massachusetts, Chestnut Hill Mall, and there was a line to pay at Crate and Barrel. And I happened to be standing behind Jeffrey, and what I learned later was his roommate. And there was, conversation there, and that was that. And some people have said, did you know when you saw him then that he was the one? Definitely not. Not that I didn't think he was attractive. I absolutely did. But I didn't know he was the one.
I would say we didn't even have that much interaction. I mean,
right.
really what, we're standing in line waiting to pay for Christmas gifts, and we struck up a conversation, but it wasn't, it wasn't like we were in the line very long. I'm going to say the whole thing was certainly less than a half an hour.
Right.
And the conversation was probably more like 15 minutes or less,
Exactly.
maybe 10.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
And then we went on our own ways, and 3 years later, a full 3 years later went by, and we never saw each other, and didn't know anything about each other really. And why did those 3 years pass is a really important part of twin flames. In order for twin flames to get together and work, they have to be completely and totally whole in their own self.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot. Karen talks about this a lot in the whole relationships and series that we've done. Basically, you have to love yourself first. So, this is no different with twin flames. You not only have to be whole, each of you are whole, and by that I mean you have to love yourself and understand you're on solid ground. Fill yourself up first so that's overflowing to go on to the next person. Right. That's advice we would give to anybody in any relationship, right?
Absolutely.
It's no different with twin flames.
No different with twin flames. I think the only difference is when twin flames meet and they're not there, they actually repel against each other, right. Which is essentially what happened with us. We spoke, but we didn't connect. We repelled against each other for 3 years and didn't come back for the second meeting until we were both ready. And that's fascinating in itself, in that 3 years later, and I've said this in several of our videos, not about twin flames, just about relationships. When Jeffrey and I met 3 years later, and we were both at the top of our game. We were both really, our self-worth and our inner self, everything was just at the top of our game, and
so we were ready.
We were ready. We were in a great place, and that's why we didn't meet for the 3 years. But to take that a few steps further, and I have to refer to my notes because I don't want to miss anything, because it's so fascinating, really, when you think about it. Everything fell into place, or did it? I mean, was it the universe pulling us together? Because when we met 3 years later, it was a Friday after work at one of those places in Boston, Tia's Long Wharf, where people would go on Fridays after work. Now, it wasn't a place that I really went to very often at all, and it wasn't a place that Jeffrey went. It wasn't the hangout for either of us.
No, at that point in time, my office was on Revere Beach, if you know Boston. That's north of Boston. And I lived up in Medford, which was north of that. So, yeah, it's not on the way home. We don't really go over there. We would head north to other places, unless we specifically went into Boston. But we typically didn't do that on a Friday afternoon. We want to get the hell out of the traffic. And
exactly. Yes, Boston traffic is insane. So there we were at a place that neither one of us usually went to. In addition, I had a boyfriend at that time who I think I don't remember the exact situation, but we had words or whatever. And so I ended up going out, and it was pretty last minute, with one of my girlfriends to Tia's. And then there was a sea of, like 1,000 people there hanging out for Friday after work, drinking and conversing. And my friend points, she's like, "Oh my gosh, I know that guy." And I looked where she was pointing in this sea of so many people. And, or she said, "Look at that guy, he's so cute." And I said, "Oh my gosh, I know that guy." As it turned out, she was not pointing at Jeffrey. She was pointing at the guy right next to Jeffrey, his friend. And I saw Jeffrey. Had she not pointed out someone that she thought was cute, I might not have seen Jeffrey. But again, it was all meant to be. It was all things that were happening in the universe to make sure that we were being pulled together. So all those things happened, and it was just, we were so ready for it. So all the stars aligned, you know, and I'm
Well, you can look at that, but I was just
Yeah.
going to say, you know, so it's unique that we were both there at the same time to begin with. So that's what's
Right.
interesting. And there were a lot of people. If you guys know that bar, you know similar
Oh.
scenes in every city USA.
Yeah.
You know, it's a big outdoors on a gorgeous Friday afternoon. Everybody wants to be outside with a cocktail celebrating the end of the week. So the bar was really big inside and really big outside. So this was not a 10-person bar where you just kind of showed up and said, "Oh, hey, do you remember me?"
Right.
I mean, it's
Oh
like,
my gosh.
it's a big crowd, but so
Huge
it's
crowd, right?
interesting that we got there. So
Yeah, and so you know, we spoke a little bit. Jeffrey called me the next morning, and at 8 a.m. Saturday morning, 8 a.m. You know, when you're in your 20s and you're single, and you know, people don't usually call somebody that they just met the night before at 8 a.m. They might wait until 11, or they might wait 3 days. You know, there's all sorts
or
of
3 years.
or 3 years. There's all sorts of games that play into that. And what was wild was it was obvious that he wanted to talk to me because he called me at 8 a.m. And when I answered the phone, I think it was obvious to him. I was so excited that he called me. We had an amazing conversation, right? And, you know, I think there were no games right away because there was no fear. I wasn't trying to be anyone different than I am, and he wasn't trying to be anyone different than he is. And a lot of times when you're meeting somebody new, you know, we put on a facade, or we act a way that we think they might want us to act, instead of really being comfortable and just, you know, being our own self 100%.
Right. Yeah. It's like, you know, when in researching, if you guys go out and look up twin flames, and a lot of books have been written about this, and blogs and vlogs, they'll all talk about it's like coming home.
Mm-hmm.
And what Karen's describing is, you know, coming home. Coming home is comfortable, right? You go home, you know what the kitchen looks like. You've been there many times. You know what your bedroom looks like. You know what your bed feels like. Coming home is very comfortable. So I think that's why they use the term coming home.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it was, I didn't think anything of it. I've always gotten up early, 8 o'clock, you know, whatever. I've probably been up for 5 hours, but not 5 hours, 5 o'clock, I get up 3 hours. Been up for 3 hours, 2 or 3 hours, whatever it was. And I thought, let me give her a call. And maybe we should go out tonight. You know, it was a Saturday.
And normally I would not have been up at 8 o'clock, but I happened to have gotten up earlier. Again, the stars align. And I picked up the paper and I was reading an article on the blue lobster, which I thought was so fascinating. So when he called me, we talked about that blue lobster.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right?
Yeah, if you know Boston, obviously New England, lobstering is a big thing. And there are, once in a while, they get blue lobsters and yellow lobsters. There's a pigment in the skin, almost like an albino kind of a thing, but pure blue. And they make a big deal about it when, you know, one is really complete, a complete color.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's
and that was a sign too, because those are also a rare occurrence.
Yeah.
So, you know, I really believe in the signs. Jeffrey believes in them probably not as strongly as I do. That'd be a fair assessment. So,
yeah, well, you know, I take them. I think there's a lot of synchronicities, but you know, certain things like numbers on a clock that happen twice a day. I'm always cautious to put too much credence in that. I think sometimes we tend to make those things happen too if we're not careful. But certainly when you know, they're not really signs, but there are clues when I'm going down the right path. There's certain things where I'll say something and then I'll see it the next day, or the next thing I open up or turn a corner and there it is. Those are kind of things. So I guess you could call those signs, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, right.
I think you could.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so we spoke that morning, and Jeffrey asked me out on a date for that night. And I thought that was extremely rude for him to think that I didn't already have plans on a Saturday night. And
well, what you don't get when you say that was rude, and I guess that's the first time I ever heard you say it that way, because when you were saying I thought it was extremely rude, I'm thinking, rude? I'm asking you out. I mean, it's like the opposite. But assuming that you didn't have anything going on, I really didn't care whether you had anything going on or not. I mean, I just met my twin flame, so it's
that's
like
the beautiful part.
The attraction overrides anything else. Whatever you had going on, in my mind, wasn't more significant than what just happened.
Exactly. And I also had a rule, which would be part of the games, right?
Yeah.
Where if somebody did ask me out, I had this 3-day rule. So, you know, there was...
The 3-day rule was if someone was asking inside the 3 days, you would say no.
I would say no, but I'd be available on Wednesday if they asked me on Saturday. You know, whatever 3 days out would be, I'd be available after that point in time.
I'm sure some people are thinking that's ridiculous.
Well, it's a stupid game, and I'm not going to lie to you. I think it's ridiculous now too.
Isn't it like an Emily Post thing or something? Though, isn't it like it's something like that?
I can't even
remember. I don't even know, but something like that.
But I stood behind that 100% until Jeffrey said, you know, I said that I couldn't go out.
Yeah, and I keep looking out here, guys, because we got this little purple finch. Is that what it was? It has this purple tuft.
It's called a cason. It's the cutest
thing. A cason finch. I've never seen anything like it. It's just incredible.
About this big, and it's brown, but it's got this little red tuft, just like a cardinal, and it is so cute. And we've got snow here, supposedly for the next 8 days. We live up in the mountains. And it's just the most beautiful backdrop. But look at it, they're so cute.
Yeah. Anyway, so... Yeah, you were talking about the 3-day rule, and I was just saying whatever it wasn't important enough to stop what we had going on. So when I said, you know, let's go out, and Karen was kind of, I could tell she was hemming and hawing, if that's the term. You were kind of, you know, you weren't ready to answer, but you didn't want to answer. So there was reluctance there, I guess is a better word, reluctance. And I just
I really wanted to go out with you, but
you had your rule, your stupid rule. You thought you were going to play these games, right?
Not only did I have my rule, I also had plans.
Yeah.
That was the key. I had other plans with someone else.
Yeah. So I just said, I just assumed something like that was going on. And I said, you know, here's what I want you to do. Hang up the phone, call this other guy, tell him you met the man of your dreams, and call me back and tell me we're going out tonight. Mm-hmm. And I just shut up and the silence. You know, they call it a pregnant pause. It seemed like it was 5 minutes, but it was probably 5 seconds.
Well, I thought that was actually one of the most ballsy things that anyone had ever said, because it was so clear that he wasn't playing any games and he really wanted to go out with me. And I felt like I really wanted to go out with him too, but at the same point in time, I was conflicted because I was dating somebody else that I had been in a relationship for almost 3 years, pretty much the week after I met him 3 years prior until that time. And that relationship had a lot of issues, and I knew it wasn't the one. So the timing of this, you know, was really perfect for you to come back into my life. And I said to him, you call me back in 15 minutes. Anyway, I called my boyfriend and I told him that I couldn't go out, and Jeffrey called me back, and we went out that night to a quaint little place in Boston called Corey's. And again, there were so many signs right there. We were constantly touching each other in a very gentle way. Not gonna lie, there was a lot of attraction there, but the touching was different. It was more this pull, this magnetic pull. And I mean, I can remember our knees touching and our hands touching.
Well, the fact that you remember that, you are a hopeless romantic anyway, but the fact that you remember that.
I do, I love love and everything love.
Right. But the fact that you remember that, it was pretty significant. And I think it is that magnetic power, that attraction that we're talking about, when, you know, those two souls come back together, it's like you're home. And you need to be close. And, you know, we'll do more on this later too, because we just wanted to go into the reunion. So this is kind of classic. If you go look this stuff up and you look at twin flames and read books on it or whatever you want to do, you'll see that a lot of times they meet. There's a period of time of, you know, repelling where you aren't together because things weren't ready. Then you come back together. They call it a union or a reunion. The other thing is too, and this is a story for another day, because we got married pretty quickly thereafter. But
we did,
because you're two souls coming together, two of the same souls coming together. You're mirror images of each other. So a lot of times I would be showing Karen things in herself that she didn't like, and she'd be showing things to me that I didn't like, because it's a complete mirror image. So
Mm-hmm.
when your twin flame tells you something that they don't like about you, that really hurts, because you know it's true. That's the tough part. This is
Mm-hmm.
what, when you dig in, a lot of people, I see some things online like, you don't want to meet your twin flame because it's very painful, it's brutal. They talk about all this stuff, but that part you have to get through. But the beauty is there's unconditional love there. That all of that repelling and abrasiveness is really nothing compared to the power of the attraction and the unconditional love, right?
Exactly. And I do think the unconditional love is the key there, because previous to that, I wasn't in a relationship with unconditional love. I certainly wasn't giving unconditional love, and I definitely wasn't receiving unconditional love. And when Jeffrey and I started dating, it was immediate. So even those negatives that he's talking about, and they were there.
Well, everybody has them.
Right. But it's okay, because there's no threat, no feeling, no worry, no concern that those negatives are going to disrupt the relationship. And that's a big thing about when you do meet your twin flame. You're not worried. There's such a comfort. You're not worried that they're going to find somebody else, or that you might turn them off at all. There's none of that. It's
now part of it is too, let me go back to, you have to be ready. So you have to both be in a similar place on this awakening.
Both of you.
Yes, both of you. So this is important too. This is any advice I'd give to anybody that would ask me for relationship advice. You got to rise above all this ego crap, fear, pride, anger, all the stuff we humans are so petty about.
Right.
I mean, that's the ego stuff. So when something comes back to me that said, "Hey, Jeffrey, look at this about yourself. Look how terrible this is." Your ego is like, well, "How dare you bring this up to me?" And you lash back out. But if you're at a place where your higher self can look at, you know what, that's correct. I probably need to work on this. It's pretty painful, but I have to work on this. But I would give that advice to anybody in any relationship. You have to rise above this, and I've been saying this a lot lately. It's really helped me. That's why I keep trying to share it. If somebody says something that I don't like, that conflicts with what I'm trying to put out there, it's basically the opposite of my opinion, I stop and say, "Hey, why are they saying that?"
Right. You step back and look at it, and because there's always something that can be learned.
Right. And what do you normally do when you aren't on this enlightened path?
Lash back.
Well, you do. You fight back. It's like, how dare you?
Right.
I
insult my ego.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's so fascinating and so interesting, and I think also that with the twin flames being in home and being comfortable, there's also this sense of you were two halves that are brought together, and when we got together, I had such an intense feeling of wanting to be the best version of myself, not being different than myself, but being the best version of myself. And I think that's because all of a sudden I'm feeling whole and complete with my soul. And I think also Jeffrey and I have had and continue to have this spiritual journey that is really important when twin flames meet as well.
Well, then that's been accelerating over the past, let's say maybe it started 10 years ago, 5 years ago, really intense. Over the last year, more intense. It's getting more intense.
Yeah.
So that's another thing about twin flames when they come together. Two things, that path to enlightenment accelerates, number one, but number two, you're usually here on a mission. And we say this all the time. That's why we're writing the book. That's why we're putting a lot of these videos out. We want to share what we feel about our tips and tricks on how to live your best life. Right. I mean, again, we don't know it all. We're quick to say that, but it's like we want to share it. You say this all the time. You've been saying this for years, that you really want to share the story with others, that it's out there.
I think I've said this, probably since our third date, when we knew right away the second time around, and people have asked that, when we got back together or not, we weren't when we got together the second time, I knew immediately on that first date that this was a forever thing. And I never doubted it. I never questioned it. I never worried about it. So that's really another, interesting point as well.
Yeah. And we've got a lot more to share. There's a few
Yes.
things. I don't want to make this video too long because I have a
Nope.
few more things, but
Yep.
we can do a follow-up video tomorrow, taking a little deeper.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions about twin flames, put them in the comments down below, and we'll try to hit it in series 3 or 4. And again, I want to let everyone know that everyone doesn't have a twin flame on this planet at this time. Sometimes when a soul, and this is really deep, but sometimes when a soul splits and it drops into the two bodies, they don't both come back in the same lifetime. So therefore, I mean, if they did, everyone would have one.
I think you're in session 6 now.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to save the rest of that because
Yeah,
it's really
because
interesting.
it really is, and
Yeah.
this is what I'm
And
saying.
it's a longer discussion.
You could go
than that.
really deep. This is
Yeah.
like you're opening
Good
up
point.
a
Thank
can of
you.
worms.
Thank you. Stay tuned. Wishing you great health, abundant happiness, and outrageous love from our little nest at Copper Mountain.
Thank you.